I would like to welcome our next speaker, Gail Manchin, to the podium. As we heard already, Gail is the federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission and West Virginia's former First Lady. Thank you, Gail, for being here with us today and to share your valuable insights and expertise.
It is such a pleasure for me to be here today on several levels. One is to reconnect with people that I don't get to see a lot and renew connections, brings back great memories of programs. I laugh when every time Eloise and I get together, we always begin by some type of reminiscing about, remember when. And so as I was thinking about this symposium, this physical activity symposium, I kept trying to think, how far back does this really go? And I took it back at least, and I may not be all the way back, but one of the first projects was trying to get soda pop out of vending machines in the schools. That was a really big deal. That was when I was on the State Board of Education. And it was interesting to me because it was obviously the principal of the schools that kind of would make that decision.
I think that was 2006.
Yeah. And so we have this big meeting of principals, and I kept thinking, how do I approach this? And so I just laid it out to them. And so I had one principal that came up to me afterwards. It was a former principal of Capitol High School in Charleston. And he said to me, our biggest money maker for all of our school projects are our vending machines. That's where we get most of our money. And he said, so if I take all the soda pop out of my vending machines, we're going to lose all that money. I said, well, our theory is whatever is in that vending machine, the kids will buy. And it doesn't have to be soda pop. And he says, I really don't want to do this, but if you're telling me that this is the right thing to do for our kids, I'm going to do it. That was one principal that came up to me and said, I will do this if it's what's right for our kids. And he did. So I thought, well, I could go back and lambaste all the principals that didn't offer, but I thought, no, I'm going to use the reverse psychology. So I made this plaque and presented to the principal of Capitol High School for his outstanding dedication to his students and taking pop out. Well, I was absolutely bombarded with principals saying, we want a plaque. And so, sometimes it's interesting how so by offering a plaque, we did manage to get soda pop. I don't know if it's still out of the vending machines, but we did make it happen at one point in time. And then a more fun time, we were in McDowell County in the Welch Armory. All of these schools from McDowell County were in there, and the teachers, these were math, English, science, chemistry, biology teachers, phys ed teachers, all teachers. Then there were their classes, and what they had done was created activity within their classroom involving their curriculum, whether it was English, math, science, whatever it was. And so these classes were there to show us, to make these presentations. And then, of course, those of us that were there, we were joining in. But this was one of Eloise's projects, but it was how to get kids, not only motivated in school, but get the blood flowing. So in the middle of class, you get up, you have them do something, but it has to do with whatever they're doing in their classroom. Good things. And what we find out, that it is about connections, It is about people you meet and the relationships that you build and how you keep connecting when you are working around the same unit, whether it's physical activity, health. And so I've always worked from the state level, State Board of Education, Healthy Lifestyles Commission, Education and the Arts, all of it was around the state level. And now I'm in this federal co-chair position for the Appalachian Regional Commission. And what I found was, okay, now we can add another layer. Now when I look across the Appalachian region, West Virginia being the only state that's totally within the region, and we're right in the center. Senator Mitch McConnell and I have had several conversations around the fact that he says Kentucky is the heart of the Appalachian region. And so I said, well, Senator, if Kentucky is the heart, West Virginia is the soul. And so heart and soul, we're gonna figure out what we can do better in the Appalachian region. But what is, I think, central, I mean, what to me makes West Virginia such a critical factor is that we are central Appalachia. So not only do we have wonderful opportunities working together to make good things happen, but we have the wonderful opportunity to be able to share that activity. We're touched by 5 states, all that have counties in the Appalachian region. And so you begin to see that West Virginia can be the hub, and out from this hub, you start building this spider web of promising activities, curriculums, programs, how we work together, how we can make things better for our children and our communities, the quality of life. And so that's what I'm here to offer today, is this component that if we can put the federal level, these agencies at the federal level that can provide resources and support, working at the state level, and then the state working with communities and taking it right down to that, not only the local community, but the people that live in those communities, and how you organize, how you bring parents and young people and teachers and elected officials and your faith community and your nonprofits and your small foundations. How do you all come together and say, what can we do better? And unfortunately, we all know too well the data around Appalachia, around West Virginia, that the health outcomes throughout our lives have not been good. We don't seem to be able to lift them up where we want them to be. But I will tell you that one of the things that happened many years ago, and I don't know if any of you in this room will remember, but there was the 5 living presidents came out with America's Promise. And Colin Powell was the chairman, was the national chairman of America's Promise, and they said there's 5 promises that we should make to children. And if we can provide these 5 promises to children, they have a much better chance of growing into successful, healthy adults. And so the 5 promises were this: every child needs a caring adult in their life. Should be a parent, but not always the case. May have to be a teacher, a relative, a neighbor, a coach. Every child needs a safe place to be. Should be a home, may not be. May be the school, a sports activity, a church. They need a safe place. They need a healthy lifestyle. They need to learn what healthy eating and how to eat and what to eat. And also mental, those types of activities which we should not be taking part in, like the Game Changers program talks about. So building healthy minds and healthy bodies, and then a sound education. And it was mentioned earlier, I think Autumn talked about this, that Literacy is important, but you have to have a healthy mind and body in order to build literacy. So you want them to have a strong education. And the last one is that you teach them to give back. You teach them that whatever blessings they have, they can share with others. And so you think about the children, the young people in the world that we live in that don't have those 5 promises. That's the disparity of the Appalachian region, is that inequality, that isolation, these very rural areas that struggle to find the resources and the support to be able to provide to children these 5 promises, maybe not stated that way, but we want to give every child someone in their life that says you're special, that they feel safe where they go to bed at night, that they have meals, that they come to school healthy on a full stomach, that they're able to learn, and that they know then how to help others to give back. And so what I say to you today, this is a physical activity symposium, but this is really about the quality of life for not just our young people, but their families, the communities. If we build a strong family, we will start building strong communities. And when we build a strong communities, that builds our counties, that fills our state, that builds our region. The Appalachian region is 423 counties, 26 million people. The only entity in this country that's bigger than the Appalachian region is California and Texas. This region can make an impact. And so the more we share, the more we build together, the more we connect, the more relationships that we establish, the greater our success is going to be. I want to thank each and every one of you in this room. You're here because you care. You're here because you have the professional expertise in your field to make a difference. And you found the time because you believed this was the important place you needed to be today. And it is. It's exactly where you need to be today. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And Eloise, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Gail. That was very inspiring, and it really does make us think more about, we keep talking about collaboration here with all of us within the state, but now, because of your talk, we should think more about Appalachia, all across Appalachia, and how we can collaborate with others that have similar problems and issues that we have here in West Virginia in terms of promoting physical activity. So I would like to remind you of the question today and welcome the panel that we have to help shed some light on this topic. So with us today, I already introduced Allie, but Allie Jaglowski is the Vice President for the Center for Advancing Healthy Communities at the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors. We have Elizabeth Liz Vitullo. She is the Assistant Vice President of Economic Innovations at WVU. And Kent Spellman, he is now the board chair for West Virginia Trail, but he is also the past executive director and I think creator of the West Virginia Community Development Hub. So I'm going to ask them some questions, and Gail, you feel free to chime in anytime as they answer their questions. But
Such a woman of few words.
I'm going to start out with you, Liz. Well, I was going to start off, let me start off with Ally. Ally, what is the best way that communities can move forward with policy, system, and environmental changes to improve physical activity from your perspective?
Can everybody hear me? Great. Well, thanks for the question. I was really impressed when I saw the 10 sectors that you highlighted earlier as part of the physical activity plan, because I think if you're at a community level and you're really looking to implement policy and systems change, starting with a representative from your community that comes from each one of those 10 sectors to really come together to represent that space is an excellent way. And I heard you talk about how at the very beginning you formed your committee and you spent the time to create partners those first 2 years of developing the plan. And I really do think that's one of the best investments that you could make in increasing physical activity, policy, systems, environmental change strategies in your community, is to invest in making some friends that have similar interests and want to be at the table to work on this. The one sector I would add, that it wasn't reflected in the 10, and I don't know how you would reflect it, but it's the community members with lived experience that are going to be engaging in physical activity, inviting them to be part of your community, whether it's a mom with kids and what their experience is like going to a local park or being on a trail, an individual that might have a disability who's in a wheelchair that is experiencing what it's like to be in the community and navigate the community and try to be active in a wheelchair, or a senior who might also have mobility issues, but for different reasons, maybe they're less stable on their feet and want to get out with maybe their kids or their grandkids. So I think, if you're able to bring together that multi-sector partnership, but also individuals with lived experience in your community, and then to, get to know each other and understand what everyone's interests are, and then identify what the assets you already have. I mean, if you've got trails, if you've got parks, if there's schools that are able to open their spaces after hours for people to be active, but then also identify where are those gaps. What don't we have? What do we need? And make a plan to move towards addressing some of those gaps. And my association, I know I've had an opportunity to work with some of you in the room, but we offer something called the Walkability Action Institute, and an individual from my team, Karma Edwards, said, please let them know that we offer this. We can come to West Virginia. We'd love to come to West Virginia and bring together a multi-sector team to help you do that assessment and create that action plan. So we can definitely talk more about that as an opportunity, but I think those are some of the foundational steps of bringing together policy change in your community.
Yeah, and thank you for those comments, Ally. I was thinking as you were saying that about, we talked about, should a sector be home? Should a sector be, but using the National Physical Activity Plan sectors, what we did was try to address all those issues, those that had chronic disease, special disabilities, children, older adults, within the tactics of those. So when you really look at the plan, and you might go into one of the sectors and look at the tactics, you'll see that we've tried to address many of those things that you mentioned within the tactics. So, but thank you for bringing that up. Liz, what are some resources that communities can leverage to support collaborative initiatives?
Can you guys hear me okay? Well, thank you for having me, Eloise. Really appreciate that.
Sure.
So before I answer that, I'm just curious in the audience, how many of you guys work with grants? Okay. How many of you are a grant writer and that's your sole job? Okay, so, well, that helps me here. One of the initiatives that I'm so proud of, and it's so appropriate that I'm sitting beside Mrs. Manchin here, is the West Virginia Grant Resource Center. Has anyone heard of that? Okay, well, I love seeing the nods, but just a little bit of background on the West Virginia Grant Resource Center. It is a collaborative effort between WVU and Marshall, and the whole goal behind it is to bring more federal, state, private foundation dollars into the state to support economic development, economic prosperity. In developing this proposal, my co-founder and I, Sarah Payne Scarborough from Marshall, we witnessed this incredible opportunity around federal funding, but such limited resources within nonprofits and organizations to pursue this. So we did a quick survey of various groups and found out what are the biggest barriers to grant writing. And it's writing the actual grant, it's having a data-driven proposal, the collaboration and all the aspects that go into this. So we built at the center to address these challenges. So our center will provide, I should say the most important thing, it's free. So let me repeat that, it's a free resource. It's through funding through the ARC with match dollars from the state. So I want to thank Speaker Hanshaw for his support of this effort as well. But we write any kind of grant that supports economic prosperity, economic development. So whether that's community development, workforce, infrastructure, job creation, retention, and a lot of things can fit into those buckets. We do grant writing, technical reviews. We help you find grant resources. And this is through a small army of grant writers, both at WVU and Marshall. And then they're able to reach into the expertise at each university and leverage those and bring those to the forefront within the grants. Through our funding, we have a 3-year window. And so in our first year, we were thrilled to bring in over $26 million of grants, and that was with some ramp-up time. We also provide grant training. So if you guys have organizations or events, we can do a tag-on grant training opportunity. And we also have done a number of grant proposals in the physical activity space, trail development, community development. If you're interested in our services, I've left cards and materials out at the registration desk, so we'd love to chat with you about any kind of grants that you're working on or how we may be able to assist you. But I do really need to thank the ARC for believing in this proposal, so thank you.
Great. I love that tie-in too. At first, I didn't really understand that was going to be like that
Well,
until
you seated us
I know, I did. So Kent, what does collaboration mean for organizations like West Virginia Trail and the Hub, and what does it look like in action that these people can take back with them?
Thank you, Eloise. Can everybody hear me okay? You never know with these mics. Okay. Collaboration. Boy, I'll tell you, a lot of people love to talk about collaboration. It's really easy to talk about collaboration. It's really hard to actually collaborate. And one of the things we've found is that it often means self-sacrifice in a way that an individual or an organization is not willing to do. I think that collaboration is critical, and it's collaboration at a local level. You have to have a local team. You have to have a group of people who believe in what you're trying to do, but who live in your neighborhood or your community. That's how people relate to place, is where they are. So create that team at the local level, then build your connections at the regional level. In the trail community, for example, I'm on a board of directors for a local countywide trail organization, but I'm also on the board of the Mountaineer Trail Network, which is 16 counties, and I'm also on the board of West Virginia Trail, which is statewide. When you start combining that local energy with that regional push and a statewide initiative, you start developing the kind of collaboration that can actually make a difference. What I'd say about collaboration and about using it to influence policy change is that, frankly, trickle down is a myth. It's a myth whether we're talking about economics or whether we're talking about policy influencing. It all starts at the grassroots, and we can make a difference in terms of influencing policy around investment in physical activity in West Virginia. Everybody talks about how important our active outdoor recreation industry is, how important trails are, but West Virginia is the only state within this region that does not invest state revenue in the development, acquisition, and maintenance of trails. It's all the states around us do. If we really believe in this stuff, we have to invest in this stuff. And how do we get that investment to be made? It's through people like you. Now look, I know we're all talking to the choir here. What we really have to do is all go back out to our communities, grab those people in our communities by the back of their necks and say, hey, believe in this with us. I had a legislator a number of years ago. I was in a meeting with him, and I noted that he had changed his vote on some issue, and I asked, why did you change your vote? And he said, oh, I got a whole bunch of calls about it. And I said, really? How many calls did you get? He said, 3. 3. If you think that your call to your legislator isn't going to make a difference, rethink that. That's how we make positive change around policy. And there are so many policy issues that we could change to enhance the ecosystem for trail development, for active outdoor recreation, and for physical activity. They don't need to be expensive, but they need to be made.
Thank you, thanks. That is very helpful to think about, because we're always thinking about policy change and how we go about that. So I think your comments were very helpful in thinking in a little different way about that, maybe. So Liz has to leave to get to another meeting. I want to ask her one more quick question before she leaves. So Liz, how can you provide some examples of innovative initiatives that are built around physical activity and leveraging our outdoor assets?
Well, one of my favorite examples is Ascend, West Virginia. And Ascend is, I think, one of the most innovative economic development initiatives that the state has undertaken. It is funded by the Wing to Wing Foundation, Brad and Elise Smith, in conjunction with the state, the Department of Tourism, and then operated by West Virginia University. And it was born out of, it really came out of COVID, where people were rethinking where they wanted to live, work, and play. And then in looking at, the assets that West Virginia has, like what's our value proposition as a state? And, we have unparalleled outdoor assets. And so we built a program for remote workers that were rethinking, they were living in concrete jungles, and they thought, this is not how I want to spend my time. So West Virginia offered an incredible solution. So in our due diligence and our benchmarking and looking at programs, I think we built one of the premier remote worker programs. And it is an offer, there's a financial offer where people receive $12,000 to move to the state, but more importantly, they get access to outdoor recreation, there's community building, there's connections with nonprofits. And in that first release of the program, we had over 1 million unique hits to our website, 50,000 applications from all over the U.S. and 8 countries, and people were just clamoring. So, it really provided a way to rethink how to work and live and leverage what we have here in the state. The program also has incredible economic, has had an incredible economic impact in the state. So the program is projected to be built and run over 7 years. And over that time, we'll see about $500 million return on the investment that was made there, which is incredible. And out of Ascend, West Virginia, it built the infrastructure for remote workers to come to the state. We have 5 locations across the state, but we're also using this infrastructure to recruit back very specialized population or retain specialized populations like First Ascent. That's a program that's targeted to keep our college graduates here from both WVU and Marshall. We're working on a teacher Ascend program. We have a military Ascend program in the works and an entrepreneurship Ascend program. So that flywheel effect that President Smith often talks about. So all of this is built off of outdoor assets, physical activity, and the need to, think about how they can live their life differently. So that was one example that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we do have a panel on economic development and outdoor recreation. It's actually the last panel of the day today. So, and that kind of fits right in. You'll notice that some of these things, they are more than just an answer to that question of that focus. They kind of go across the whole symposium. So think about those things as we're talking more about outdoor rec and economic development. Gail, is there anything you'd like to add to anything anyone said?
Well, again, I just want to reiterate how important it is to work together, to build from that local level of people know what their challenges are, they know the problems, and they generally have some ideas on how they can fix them. And bringing those people together, getting buy-in, then working with your local elected officials, your state level, and then the federal level, because there are many ways that great partnerships can be created and to build programs like this. And I will say, as sort of the final touch, that building this state plan is so critical. And then even more critical, implementing it, but sharing it, reaching out and showing other states how it can be done.
Thank you. Yes, and that's what we want you to do, is get the physical activity plan out to everyone that you work with, that you know can have some kind of influence in implementing the plan. That's so important. Just we have a couple more minutes just to wrap it up there, Allie. Just a quick question. How do you, and you don't have to go into a lot of detail, you kind of mentioned this, but how do you recommend that communities get started with making these PSE changes in physical education, physical activity?
Sure, and I have to say I was remiss in not opening with greetings from my CEO, John Robichaux. He is so impressed with the work that's happening in West Virginia. You all are leading in the nation with your physical activity plan, and he feels strongly that all 50 states and our territories should be modeled after what you all are doing. So I talked to Eloise last night a little bit about this, but I know he's very interested, and part of why I'm here today is to learn from your experience and to be able to share that. Our association, we are made up of all 50 states and territories, chronic disease directors at the state level and their staff, and we have the opportunity to really influence what's happening in other states and bring your best practiced example. So I just want to let you know you are #1 in physical activity state planning with Texas, and we're just really proud, and I'm really honored to be here today to learn from you all. And I think I talked already a lot about the multi-sector approach, and I think at that community level, you know, it is hard, right? Bringing people together. So investing that time, I mean, when you said you took 2 years to really get to know and develop partnerships and create buy-in and get support and listen to your partners, I think that's one of the most important things that you can do as you're developing what's right for your community, what's right for the place where you are. Because I think that's so well said that we identify with where we are and want to contribute and participate there. I'm actually living currently in Virginia, and I was one of the people that fled DC to move to Virginia as a remote worker, and I think I made the wrong decision 4 years ago.
There's still time. There's still time.
As I drove over the mountains here yesterday, I actually was, telling my husband, it's beautiful here, and he said, I know. So maybe it's not too late for us, but
We'll talk afterwards.
okay.
That's so funny. That's good. Kent, last comments?
Yeah, I've been working on trails in various ways since 1988. So that's like 35 years. But I always tell people, I don't give a damn about trails. What I care about is what trails do for our communities, and through that, what they do for our local economic development initiatives. And that same thing applies to physical activity. It is about what it does for our population, their mental health as well as their physical health. And we have to look at a bigger picture when we're thinking about our future with this. I know everybody looks at trails and thinks in terms of the tourists that might come to cycle on our trails or hike or run on our trails and the dollars they'll leave behind as tourists. I don't think that's the most important thing. Tourism is merely a tool to advertise what West Virginia has. The real goal is to have people come and say, well, this place is pretty cool. I'm going to bring my family here. I'm going to bring my small business here. And that's how real economic development happens around outdoor recreation, around trails, and around community development.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Let's give them a round of applause. They were all great.